On last week's episode of the Epic Family Road Trip, we crossed from the north to the south island of New Zealand with our Jeep to begin the next leg of our New Zealand Overland expedition. After we arrived, we found ourselves on a remote beach in a race against time, helping to rescue the largest stranded pod of whales in New Zealand history. After that unforgettable experience, we drove south to the beautiful village of Collingwood on Golden Bay. At Collingwood, we set up camp right next to the water. The boys stayed out on the beach fishing with the local fishermen from morning until the sun went down behind the mountains and a large full moon rose above the horizon.
You caught that thing?
On my rod.
Nice.
No way.
Show me what you got. Wow.
Around 2 o'clock in the morning, my brothers and I were jarred awake as our tent collapsed on top of us. We had been sleeping soundly as a big storm blew in off the ocean. The high winds and heavy rain proved too much for our tent.
Hey, I'm just inspecting all the gear. Getting some strong gusts of wind. We're literally 10 feet from the ocean, which is very beautiful during the daytime when the weather's nice, but man, the wind gusts coming off the ocean are insane. So
my brothers and I climbed up into the high and dry rooftop tent and fell asleep. My parents got up, made a coffee, and kept an eye on the storm until the sun came up on another adventure-filled day in New Zealand. From Collingwood, we headed a few hours back south to the town of Nelson to camp for the night and dry out our soaked gear. From Nelson, we drove across to the west coast to set up camp right by the ocean near the town of Greymouth. The weather in Greymouth was wonderful, so we stayed for a few extra days to enjoy the warmth and sunshine.
beautiful ride today beside the crazy West Coast ocean.
On our last night here, we enjoyed another stunning sunset on the beach. We then began the beautiful drive to the town of Franz Josef. This drive took us along endless, vibrant blue glacier-fed rivers, deep green valleys, and soaring mountains until we arrived in the gorgeous mountain town of Franz Josef. We camped the night here as we plotted our course for the next few days and weeks as we continued traversing the South Island.
We go down here to Wanaka and then to Queenstown and then
We can go down and then we can come up and go
Jackson's Bay, that's what the guy said.
We then headed to Westland Taiputini National Park to do an epic trek on the Fox Glacier. We woke up early the next morning and headed to the Fox Glacier headquarters, where we attended the safety briefing before taking off on an epic helicopter flight up to the glacier. The flight up to the glacier provided a bird's eye perspective of the awe-inspiring glacier filling the valley below. After we landed on the glacier, we met our guide, strapped on our crampons, and began the trek up the ice.
When you go to the far end and take you in that mud, come from some glacier or irregular area. Slightly bigger pieces to it, it's like soil from the garden. And glacial clay is super, super fine. It's like silk with your fingers.
We found a small spring of fresh glacial water coming from the ice, which was so fresh and clean that we filled our water bottles. And let me tell you, this was the most refreshing drink of water we have ever had. What an experience it was to explore and crawl through vibrant blue ice caves.
If someone could take the water or
Cold and wet?
really wet. That's awesome.
Wet enough yet?
It's wet.
This is a really cool view right here.
How was it?
Awesome.
Blue in there?
It was now time to board the helicopter and head back down the glacier. Fox Glacier, we drove the mountain pass known as Host Pass through the southern Alps to the town of Wanaka. Along the Host Pass, we stopped quite a few times to appreciate the stunning views, including the beautiful Thunder Creek Falls. Once we made it to Wanaka, we set up the rig where we would camp for the next few days exploring the area. We really enjoyed these few days in Wanaka, catching up on work, school, and journaling while we were surrounded by the peaceful beauty of this part of New Zealand.
What you making?
Hobbit homes.
Nice.
We rode our mountain bikes into town and visited the famous Lone Tree of Lake Wanaka. Before carrying on south to Queensland, we wanted to do one of the gorgeous hikes in the Wanaka area. After speaking with some of the locals, we decided to hike the summit of Isthmus Peak. The Isthmus Peak track is about a 16-kilometer round-trip trek with a 1,385-meter elevation gain. It is also an out-and-back trail. This trek is an amazing and breathtaking hike, and we highly recommend it if you are ever in that area of New Zealand's South Island. For most of the trek, we would look back and enjoy stunning views of Lake Hawea below, lined with soaring hills and rocky cliffs. Once we neared the summit of Isthmus Peak, this vantage point provided epic views of both Lake Hawea and Lake Wanaka.
When we were down at the trailhead, we looked up and we saw those peaks there, and we thought that was the summit. Now we're looking down on them about as far down as they were above us. So we often see that, what they call a false summit. You shoot for this first peak and then you realize you're only halfway up, and that's the same case here. We're going up there. The actual summit is up there, about 4,700 feet from the bottom, so we'll be up there shortly.
This should be good. One.
It was quite windy at the summit, and a summer rain blew in over the mountains and lakes. It was refreshing for us as we rested and cooled down after the hike to the top.
Go your own
tuned for next week's episode of the Epic Family Road Trip as we head to Queenstown, the adventure capital of the world, to bungee jump 141 feet off the world-famous Kawaro Bridge, and on the way, drive on the Crown Range Road, the highest elevation road in New Zealand.
Everything you feel